Welcome back. Well, the next half hour promises to be a treat. If you are into long-term investing, if you want to understand business cycles and businesses better, well, we have two high pedigree managements joining in one after the other. The first stock has been such a stunning wealth creator and a steady compounder. It has actually risen 130 times over the last 2 decades. And look at the numbers here on your screen. This is the stock price in FY10, 180. Today, we're talking northwards of 2,500. Now, look at revenue and profitability. Again, just the compounding. I mean, a revenue figure of about 6,500 crores in FY10, and today you're talking in excess of 20,000 crores. And it's not just top line, it's translated to EPS, to profits. So we'll pull up the profit numbers as well for reference. 830 odd crores, and today northwards of 3,600 crores. That is the story of Asian Paints. A very colorful one, but the overarching color for investors has been green. Well, with that, let's welcome in Amit Syngle, MD and CEO of the company. Mr. Syngle, it's a pleasure for us to have you, on this conversation. We're turning the year, we're turning the decade, so we thought it's a great time to hear from winners of the decade, and of course, Asian Paints is one of them. So I'll start with a broader question. Your investors are giving you very high valuations in the market with the hope that the growth journey is going to continue. So how will you ensure that you fulfill that promise of, phenomenal growth? What's going to be the driver for the next several years?
So thank you, first of all, to invite me on the channel and for all those accolades which you spoke of. I think, first of all, what we are very, very clear is that, we are kind of committing to this trajectory of growth as we look at the next 4 to 5 years in terms of our path. And this is something which is really kind of embedded with lots of strategies which have been put into place so that we are kind of very strongly married to this growth path in terms of what we are committing to. First of all, there are lots of strategies in place so that we kind of continue to kind of grow the core business very, very strongly, which is the whole business about bringing joy to people's lives through paint and decor. And that's something which is where we have lined up a huge amount of strategies. So whether the strategies kind of really look at expanding the overall market rather than looking at in terms of just a share from competition. And we look at in terms of really looking at growing the per capita consumption by looking at avenues and looking at really, straddling the markets to kind of create more demand. And that is something which we perceive which can be done more from the point of view of creating new kind of zones. So for example, one of the big areas which the company is driving is that looking at the bottom of the pyramid in a very strong way so that we can get more and more people in the painting cycle. And by virtue of this, we look at people upgrading and getting into the organized paints brand in a very, very strong way. And this is something which we think can keep on fueling the overall growth for the company for the next 5 years. The second area, which is very big, is that can we look at people painting their homes far more frequently from what they are doing today. And that itself kind of really, catapults the market in terms of higher consumption, which really happens. And that is something which we are doing through our decor measures, which means that people can paint one room, one wall without taking the whole home to that extent, and kind of just increases the interaction with the brand and changes the whole painting cycles as we see it. And the third area is that we look at flanking the whole core business with lots of new things which will come in. So for example, the whole area of waterproofing and construction chemicals is a big story. And that is something which we are growing the business very strongly. It is really underpenetrated, and we think we can really expand the market very, very strongly as we kind of go ahead to that extent and really add on to the core business in a big way. And lastly, getting into more innovation and owning up the home in a big way and getting into home decor. And we have already started our foray into that with kitchen and bath. And this year we have entered in terms of a lot of home categories like furniture, furnishing, and lighting. And that seems to be the other big strategy in terms of what we want to take so that we own the home piece strongly. So what we are very clear is that I think there are clear zones which have been drawn up, clear strategies which are there in place, and innovation is the benchmark in terms of what we are riding this.
Okay, good to hear that, Mr. Syngle. I actually wanted to come to your moats as a paint company. But since your last answer, the last part of your answer was extremely interesting, to own the entire home. Now, when you come to bath and furnishings and lightings, there is stiff competition there. I mean, Parry and Serra and Jaguar are not pushovers. So, I mean, you'll have been in home improvement for some time. The other pieces, it's not made much headway. What are the plans? Can you really break through the competition there?
Okay, I think one of the highlights of the brand is that, consistency is one of the virtues which we have. And, the fact that we could ride up in terms of looking at owning up the consumer. As you know, the home consumer very well, we would like to kind of really own that piece as we kind of go ahead. So our entire strategy is around the home consumer, and therefore wooing the customer in terms of looking at taking on Asian Paints in a very, very strong way. And therefore what we felt was that the kitchen and the bath piece was a little bit incomplete, and we wanted to really kind of give a full area to the customer so that we can own the whole piece together. So today we have stores which have come up across the country. We are looking at that under one shelter, we are able to kind of give the customer the full home. So whether it is from
Mr.
the point
Syngle,
of view of...
1 minute, sir. 1 minute, sir. I completely take the point from your strategic angle. But what I'm asking you is performance. I mean, the home decor piece is now around there for about, I think, 3 years at least I've heard. Are you able to cut teeth into it? Is it making headway?
So you're right, we've taken some time. I think it's been 5 years we've been into kitchen and bath. We've taken some time. We have really grown, but we are still a very small player in that segment at the moment. But we think that the whole home decor piece which we are taking together along the retail and the service route is something which is going to crack open this in terms of really owning up the consumer. So I think that is the largest strategy in terms of what we are taking, in terms of taking on some of the bigger players, and not more often than that, the large unorganized sector which exists in this area. And that is something which is an endeavor in terms of what we want to take on.
Okay, Mr. Syngle, I'm very interested to know what the potential in this whole waterproofing business is, because you have a product here called Damp Proof, and I want to know not just the opportunity in home waterproofing, but also in construction chemicals in the industrial space. What is it now, and what could the potential be, say, over the next couple of years?
Okay, when we look at the entire Indian market, the overall the waterproofing and construction chemicals game is about a 7,000 crores business. And today, when we see even economies like China and all, the business there in terms of waterproofing and construction chemicals is almost, 10 times. Okay, so what we see is that today the entire market is very underpenetrated. And today, there is a need in terms of an expert who comes in with more innovative products, looking at better price points, looking at solutions for the market, and an assured service. So given the fact that these are the needs which are coming in the market, we think we can really grow this market, because currently, when we look at the new construction, whether we look at the big projects which are coming in, there is a lot of potential in terms of really seeding waterproofing in a very strong way. We even find that today that government is one of the large users in terms of the waterproofing products. And given the fact that infrastructure and development is a big story which is going to be around for the next 5 years, okay, we feel that's a very, very great potential market in terms of taking on this entire zone with respect to waterproofing products. You mentioned Damp Proof. Damp Proof, not only Damp Proof, but there are a range of innovative products which kind of straddle all the zones of waterproofing, whether it is foundation, podiums, terraces, repairs. So I think there is a big range which is there, which we have planned, and that is something which we are taking on strongly.
Okay, so Mr. One more point, when you started off by saying that you are hoping to expand the bottom of the pyramid, is it really successful, sir? You all succeeded brilliantly in the first 4-5 decades in getting to lower and lower echelons. But now, is there a growth in the base, or is it that you're getting more money plumbing the middle class, selling more value add to the upper class?
No, I would say that for the last about 3 years, when we have taken this strategy very, very strongly, we have been very successful in growing this market by more than double digits, which is at the at the bottom of the pyramid. And we have introduced a lot of innovative products at very smart price points. So I would say that we have been really quite successful in terms of really shaking up the bottom of the pyramid, looking at some very attractive growths which have come in, and that is something which is aiding the company in terms of really showing very strong volume growths as well, if you notice in our results. And we feel that this is a strategy which is like an ocean, and we can really take it on very, very strongly for the next about 4-5 years and keep on driving volumes here.
Okay, Mr. Syngle, we've spent a fair amount of time now understanding your medium-term strategy, and it's been great hearing you. But we must also come to the present, the here and now, right? And you absolutely surprised the street so pleasantly with better than expected growth and the bounce back in Q2. So the question is now, the rest of this year, as we get through the recovery and the pandemic ebbs out, what should people expect? And also, I mean, in Q2, inflation was controlled. Now crude oil prices are back to 50. I don't know how your other inputs are moving. So for the rest of this year and looking forward to FY22, give us some sense on the business, margins, top line, the recovery.
Volume.
Yeah.
So overall, I think post a very healthy Q2 and really leading the market in the first half, we saw very, very good demands in both the months of October and November, led by obviously the festival period and the marriage period in a very, very strong way. And we have seen that demand levels even crossed the pre-COVID levels during this point of time. So there has been very, very healthy growth, which we have seen. And I think there was a little bit of a pent-up demand, which came out very strongly at this point of time. And we are seeing that even after Diwali, the demand has been there. We see the paranoia from the customers, the retailers, and everyone around kind of going away. The news of the vaccine is something which has given us a lot of hope, and to the market to that extent. We see retailers who are now willing to kind of really stock up and see that there is a demand which is kind of coming in. We are looking forward in terms of a good agrarian output which comes in Q1 of next year to that extent. So overall, I think the demand conditions still are pretty good in terms of what they're continuing, and that kind of really augurs very well for the top line as we see for the coming quarters to that extent. As far as the margins are concerned, what we see, you're right in terms of saying that we see now the crude, some of the derivatives going up, monomers have gone up to that extent, and we see inflation happening in all set of raw materials which are there. But what we see is that the impact of this would come in more in Q4 and not too much in Q3 to that extent, because that is something which is taken care with the existing inventories which we have in terms of the raw materials which are there. But at the same time, there are huge initiatives which we have rolled out in terms of looking at formulation efficiencies and sourcing efficiencies, and looking at areas where we can look at more cost efficiencies coming into the system. So therefore, we believe that we would like to keep the margin story intact as we kind of go forward, and that is something which really seems possible at this stage, unless really the raw material prices really go northwards in a very big way, which might basically force us to kind of look at the whole area of prices once again to that extent. But I'm pretty confident in terms of the whole margins kind of being retaining in terms of the way we have been doing over the past quarters.
Okay, so one final question. Everybody is wondering whether the Indian consumer will continue with the growth story. What is the sense you are getting on the ground? Was it all pent up and work from home advantages that guys like you had, or is the consumption story really good and we can expect that it to continue in double digits into 2021?
So overall, Lata, what I would say is that there are a lot of things which depends in terms of, overall how the economy kind of develops for next year. If the GDP is kind of really back to what it was basically to the levels of about maybe 5.5% to 6% kind of a zone, we straight away see that today, the paint industry will see double-digit growth for sure as we see the next year coming up to that extent. However, a lot depends in terms of saying, what is the ingress and how is the kind of spread of the vaccine which really comes in, because we still see that by the time people really start getting the vaccine and so on and so forth, it'll be June and July of next year to that extent. So overall, what I see is that the demand conditions have opened up, and they should stay like this because the paranoia is kind of going out now. And therefore, what we see definitely is that with economy, which we hope is going to bounce back, I think next year appears to be a very strong year from the point of view of demand and performance.
Okay, we will take that crystal ball gazing with both our hands. Mr. Amit Syngle, thank you very much for joining us. Have a great 2021. Thank you for being with us on our special show, Winners of the Decade. And we do hope Asian Paints continues to remain a winner of the decade. That is just going to start next year. You've moved from 6,000 crores to a 20,000 crore company in revenues. May you be a over 50,000 crore company when the next decade ends. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for all those compliments and wishing all your viewers a very happy new year.
Okay. On that positive note, let's take a break, and we've got another exclusive lined up from another winner of the decade, HDFC. Joining us now is Keki Mistry, Vice Chair.